Okay guys, so today is basically a quick review or a quick introduction on parabolas and all of the many vocabulary words you're going to be diving into. So first, let's look at the blue parabola. First of all, when you look at this parabola, you can tell this parabola is opening downward. It's a parabola going down because the whole thing is going down like a mountain. Everything is facing the bottom. Now, I know you remember this. This is a graph because this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. That's the x and that's the y. Well, if you guys remember from other videos, you know that when it crosses the x, we call that the x-intercept because it's crossing the x. Well, in parabolas, we're actually going to call this a lot of different names, but they mean the same thing. Sometimes we call it x-intercepts. Sometimes we call them zeros. Sometimes they call them, what else they call them? Roots. And sometimes they call them solutions. These are all the different words you're going to hear, but they mean the same thing. In this case, my x-intercept, it's -5. I have another one, another x-intercept, another zero, another root, or another solution when x equals -3. Same thing here. That's when x equals 3 and when x equals 5. These are all solutions to parabolas. Now notice the red one, it's never going to cross the x-intercept because it's opening upward. It opens upward. Opens upward. Therefore, what do you think this is going to have? You guessed it, no solution, because it's never going to cross. Now, other vocabulary words you're going to focus on later on. Look at this guy over here. Sometimes a parabola is going to have a minimum. Sometimes it's going to have a minimum. And sometimes it's going to have a maximum. When you're talking about minimum and maximum, you're always talking about the y, because the y is the one that goes up and down. In this case, my minimum is, look at the y. My minimum is -3. Over here, my maximum is +1. Now, what about the red one? What do you think the red is going to have? You guessed it. This is a minimum because it's going down and then up. Therefore, that's a minimum, but a minimum of +2. Now, something else you guys have to focus on is called the axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry, like the word says, symmetry, it's when you cut in half. Cut in half. Cut in half. Well, look at the parabola. Wouldn't you agree that this parabola could be cut in half? And you'd have the same on both sides? Well, the axis of symmetry is the number where it gets crossed in half. In this case, it's always going to be my x. So when x equals 4, that's my axis of symmetry for the green line. Look over here. When x equals -2, that's my axis of symmetry. Axis of sym. And finally, over here in this one, when x equals -4, that's my axis of symmetry for the blue line. And one more thing, just to the icing on the cake here, the cherry on top. This big point, has a lot of information. It can give you the maximum. It can give you the axis of symmetry. So this big point, we call this basically the vertex. And in parabolas, that's going to have its own specific letters. We call it the H and the K. We don't call them X and Y just because we want to show how special it is. So yes, it is technically an X and Y, but we call it H and K to differentiate its uniqueness. In this case, as you can tell, in the vertex, which is right here, the vertex will give you your axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry. And your K will tell you whether it's a max or a min. And these are all the vocabulary words we're going to focus on in this unit. Have fun with parabolas. It's a great unit to have, and we'll talk about it more in our next videos.